Hello and welcome to Yolanda Nava, Do You See What I See? We have a wonderful guest today. He is a very prolific poet, playwright, and award-winning author, Gary Soto. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Yolanda, thank you.
I'm fascinated by your process. You won so many awards. You've written over 40 books, and you're still producing. You've done a libretto for an opera. You're moving into documentary and filmmaking. You're just a very creative literary giant. And so I am fascinated by that process. You started as a poet, didn't you? And what was it that inspired you to do that? Was that your first goal?
Yes, it was 1972. I was at City College, Fresno City College, age probably 19 or 20 at the oldest. And I just, for many years, felt like there was a poet inside me, even though within our own household, there was no evidence that this was going to happen for me. But, you know, I liked literature and I liked music. And I've told others that I'm so glad we have grown up during the generation of the British invasion, of Bob Dylan, of the Motown sounds. You know, that was really very, for me, moving. Those songs, and almost like poetry songs, they kind of spoke to me. So I wanted to be a part of this, and that was started in 1972.
Well, your poetry flows through your work in general, and the work of a poet is very challenging. I can write. I was a journalist, and I continue to write, books. But I started writing poetry in 2018, and it hasn't been published. I'd like to do that, but it's a very different process. What is it for you? How do you spark an idea, or how do you decide you're going to write about a particular theme?
Well, you know, my recent book, and I have to do sort of a show and tell. I'm sorry to do this to people, but it's called Downtime, and I just hold up this beautiful cover. Came out in April of this year. And Downtime is really a collection of poetry in which I challenge myself to write 100 poems in 100 days. You know, I told myself this, and I told my wife that, and then I told a very good friend of mine who's my poetry editor, and he said, Gary, that's a ridiculous idea, 100 poems in 100 days. And this was the beginning of daylight savings time, 2021. And so I challenged myself. And so I guess when you get older, you look around for inspiration to make something happen. And it did. I work on a poem a day, if not 2 poems. And of the 100, I wrote 116 poems. And I think 43 worked for me. And they became the body of this book called Downtime. And I use the couch as a reference because I do a lot of my creative writing on the couch. You know, some people have offices, maybe they go for a walk, but for me, the comfort of a couch is everything.
Now, are you sitting up or lying down?
I'm not sure if I should tell the public that secret, but it's kind of slouching. And slouching is not a good thing in itself, but for me on the couch, yeah, I can do that. I have my legs crossed, and I'm going to town. And I think daily I would think, well, what am I going to write about? And it becomes that effort. You know, I'm 71 now. And you're looking around for a subject, something to happen. And if you play around with language, or if you read someone prior to the writing process of sitting down and doing it, other literature inspires, and other literature inspires me as well. And I just read a novel yesterday by an Irish writer named Claire Keegan called Foster. And it was a novella. And I thought, well, I'll just read a couple pages. And it's one of those books you couldn't put down. And immediately I began to think, gosh, I wish I could write a novel not unlike Claire Keegan's Foster. And so that I think what literature does inspire. That's just one example. Maybe I will write a novella.
Well, that might be something else. Done just about everything else. You've done poetry. You became a playwright. Now, how did that happen?
I became a playwright. My first play, I don't know, I like plays. I go to plays pre-pandemic almost once a week, twice a week. I'm probably going to go to a play this Saturday called Chinglish and in San Francisco. I like plays. I like language. I like how bodies, play off each other. And I wanted to do the same thing. Let me be a playwright. So after writing about 5 collections of poetry, some prose and so on, I challenged myself. Again, I'm going to use the word challenge to write a play. And that play became one called Novio Boy, as in lover boy. It's a traditional story. Boy meets girl. A boy is younger than the girl. The boy is more immature than the girl. And we know that exists. So, it became very popular. The publisher, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, brought it out. And to their surprise, it sold lots of copies. And I don't know if it really, because it spoke to people, young people, or it was a time for plays to be published, but it became one of my better known works. In fact, down in the Coachella Valley, there was a week-long performance in honor of Novio Boy. So it really is a matter of sort of being inspired by other writers.
And then how did you traveled probably across California to cities that most elected officials haven't even visited. What made you target these more remote California cities to share your work in schools and colleges?
Well, Yolanda, one of the smallest and possibly one of the strongest images that I take with me to this day is in a little town called Cantua Creek, which is in the San Joaquin Valley, population 100 maybe, most of them kids because of the school there. But I went with a member of the United Farm Workers. She passed away maybe 10 years ago, Jessie de la Cruz, who used to camp there as a worker back in the 30s when she was young. And so it was I went there. I mean, if I can go to Cantua Creek, then I can go to larger cities as well. But it was puro Mexicano, puro Chicano. It was really a really strong image for me. And they probably, I have to play up the image because, a lot of kids don't see a lot of figures of literary figures or filmmakers or actors or ballet or mariachis in their school. So I have to play it up a little bit and pretend like I'm kind of a hero of some sort, even though I'm shaking inside because I'm hoping the kids don't find out I'm a big old fraud, because I want them to feel good.
So you give yourself challenges, the genre, and then what made you do a libretto for an opera?
Well, the libretto, actually, it's that Novio Boy. First, they contacted me. This was the LA Opera. They had at the time, this is 20, 25 years ago, opera in the middle schools. Like we have poetry in the schools, right. And they wanted to do something to opera in the schools. So they commissioned me to write a libretto. And that became, for Novio Boy, in turn, that became the play. So with a libretto, you don't have a lot of words to sing. You have the structure, you have the music, and the words have to, they have to be sung. They have to have a narrative. So after, that was exciting because, as I mentioned, Yolanda, I'm a child of the 60s, and to be involved in the music part of the 60s, I said, here's my chance to shine, even though I can't play guitar or any musical instrument, and I certainly can't sing. I have very little body rhythm to showcase sort of my dancing skills. But I said, hey, I can do a libretto. And so it became a Mexican-American Chicano libretto called, actually, not Novio Boy, it became Nerdlandia. And Nerdlandia became that play, my second play. So Nerdlandia is about a nerd who falls in love with a chola girl from, could be almost anywhere in California. And so again, it has that easy contrast of boy meets girl. And their contrast here, instead of age, we have a younger boy, an older girl, and nubial boy. You have a very nerdy boy falling in love with a quasi gang girl. And that's the gist here. So, it was a matter of someone approaching me. And one of the things about me is that if someone approaches me and it sounds intriguing, I will do it.
Yeah.
I will try to make it happen. It doesn't happen so much in music, even though I have tons of lyrics for songs. No one's ever really contacted me, Gary, let's work on some songs together. I would love that to happen, but again, that's not occurring. So, but I'm prepared if they should call me.
Well, it's too bad you don't play the guitar. Maybe I'll get you together with my daughter because she can play the guitar and she also plays the piano. So maybe she comes up with the music and you come up with the lyrics.
You know what she's going to do, your daughter, your beautiful daughter? She's going to do, no. That's what the usual instincts of real musicians or people who practice at a high level. Sounds like your daughter. That they don't want to be involved with someone amateurish, but I'm going to prove them wrong. Wait.
Well, you're not amateur at all because you've mastered all of your genres. I mean, you have the new book out.
Well, it's called Puppy Love.
Puppy Love.
Yeah,
I was thinking. I have to hold
up this cut. In fact, Yolanda, I received my author copies yesterday. I was thinking, please, send the book in time so that I could at least wave it in front of our crowd. And Puppy Love is it's fresh off the press. Hate to say it, but it's sort of one of those themes of boy meets girl as well. I mean, it sounds like I'm just fascinated with that, but not really. It's just that it so happens that the questions you're posing deal with the love part, the plays, and in this case, my new book. So this Puppy Love, and it's a young boy who keeps rescuing puppies, and one of the girl, not one of the girls, but the girl in the novel gets one of the puppies just before she moves away.
Oh, yes. Don't spoil the story for people. So it's captivating though. It pulls you in for the very beginning, and yet this is a book for young adults, for 15 plus up to college age. What made you focus on that particular audience?
Well, I think that I would bring it down, not so much college. I would say maybe junior high would be the max. I mean, for what young people read, this might be even almost too sweet. I mean, even the phrase "puppy love," I don't know. I don't. That's really. I like that phrase, and that feeling of moving into adolescence and all the hormonal things that are happening to you, and the position on campus, whether you're popular or not popular, just the whole meal of life. And I think that Puppy Love is that, because the young man in the novel, he fails at basketball in the presence of the girl that he likes. All he has to do is make one basket, and he will be a hero, not only for the school, but for her as well. And her name is Sierra.
And we won't tell them what happens, but no, what you do though, and I find this fascinating because it's written for a young adult. I mean, it's junior high school theme that's in the story, and I found myself pulled in immediately because you were describing the river and what's going to happen, and you're warned to not go into that canal. Canal, it's worse than a river, and so he goes in there to save a puppy. He sees something moving in the water. And this is after he's had his situation where he's, quote, failed. They're only, we make mistakes, but we also learn from them. But what I found was interesting in your story and the way you weave the story is that you're teaching at the same time, but you're not preaching. You're showing alternatives. You're showing that there's a loving way to handle a certain situation. You don't throw baby puppies into a canal to drown them. That's inhumane. I mean, and you raise these things in a very subtle way. So in a way, you're teaching at the same time as you're showing and talking about puppy love, or themes in the school where you have, rivalry, and you have bullies, and you have all these different situations that are going on. I find that your writing is very healing. Is that intentional?
Well, Yolanda, that's a great description of what occurs in the novel. And my sentiment is that I did want to write a positive novel, because the previous novel of mine was it's called Gabe, which is about a young boy who encounters his father after the father has left the house. He comes back 2 years later, homeless. I have no problem with the world of homelessness. I hope we could solve this. But for the boy, and to see his dad pulling a suitcase on wheels, it's a very devastating image, and it could be not harmful, but not as positive as, say, Puppy Love, which is it's a love story. And as you know, in love stories, classic example, Romeo and Juliet, it doesn't end well, and so in Romeo and Juliet, people die, and Puppy Love, life continues. So it is positive. And as you say, it's not preachy. It just is an example of the ideal young man, the ideal young woman. And I want to have that in literature. I want that to be available. Whether someone will go to the book because they need that healing, that's secondary. But I do want to present a literature that could be obviously positive, not to the point where it's gooey with sentiment and gooey with sort of false traits about people. But I think it, once a young person picks it up, or an adult, if they're reviewing the book, they'll see what's going on in the novel. They'll see that it's a narrative that is meant to be positive.
Well, we need some positivity, because so much of the literature that's now being sent into the schools is supposed to be so-called reality. And there are many realities, but to immerse children in kind of the roughest, toughest realities is maybe not nurturing, maybe not helpful, maybe shouldn't be limited to that, certainly. So we need a range of things to see that there is trauma, there is turmoil, there is conflict in the world, and how we can move through it, because we have heroes or heroines or subjects that are part of the literature. But I think a healing element, particularly at this point in time, and particularly after going through what we've gone through in the last few years with COVID and politically, we need some warm and fuzzy. And we need to have some inspiration. The parents were delightful. Everybody, there are people that are bullheaded. The teachers didn't want to listen, didn't believe the story about the puppy being in the, in the duffel bag, whatever.
That's right, yeah.
The backpack. So you have these characters that can be harsh and difficult for us. We've all confronted counselors or people like that in school. I know I have. And yet, on the whole, I found the school process, junior high and high school, a positive process. I enjoyed it. I loved school. I learned. I had some really positive teachers. So I think these are very special qualities. And so you're to be, I just applaud you for that, because you're giving a gift to these young people who are conflicted with so many different things going on. And I hope they'll read all of these books, and the poetry, so that they can get a more balanced idea of what life can be, and give them some hope and something to look at.
Well, yeah, that's my middle grade young adult literature. My picture books, or like Too Many Tamales, is a very effective, positive image making, and Puppy Love is just that. Oh, the phone is ringing.
That's okay, let it ring.
It must be a response to my new novel. I don't know. It's a landline.
It's a landline. They're all calling in, but it's. I just think it's fascinating that you are encouraging me, because you've tried so many different things. You've just jumped in. You've taken the challenge, and I think I've discovered that we all have more abilities than we think we have. We think we only have one gift or one talent, or there's only a limited amount of things that we can do, but you're showing that it's expansive. And I'm wondering where that comes from. what gave you that ability to be as open-minded and free-flowing, to
Well,
try
I think
different.
we have to go back to 1972. Yolanda, I graduated from high school with a very poor GPA, Roosevelt High School, 1.6 GPA,
Ouch.
which, indication is, man, this guy's not going anywhere. But this is 1970, the Vietnam War was on. If you did not go to a community college or a trade school, then you were drafted to serve the military. I have no problem with serving the military. I didn't do it, but others did do it. I went to City College in part because my older brother was there, and I thought, well, I may as well follow him along. And after 2 years of deferment, they called it, I went through the lottery. I never was not picked. And by then I was bitten by the bug called literature, in particular poetry. And for the first time, I think I was like, I woke up. I said that 1.6 GPA won't do it. I need to really, really focus. And the one thing is about writing is that you have to really try. I mean, it's not a pastime. This is a vocation. This is a calling. And I knew that. And I had to teach myself how to write. And even today, I still have to kind of like, look at my writing and see if I'm failing on any particular lines. I have good editors. First, my wife, then a good friend of mine, Christopher Buckley, serves as my editor. But I think it's what I mentioned early on is that you fall in love with literature, or it could be you fall in love with music or dance or mariachi, and if you stay with it, you can get pretty good at it. And I decided to stay with it because I was really bitten, and I began to read widely and wildly, all kinds of books in order to prepare myself, but also to enjoy literature. And that's one of the things that is surprising. I know people who don't read at all, and they're like missing a whole element of the world. You can have the visual everyday world, or the world of your phone, the world of television, the world of games. But if you don't have the world of literature, man, I just don't see how you could enjoy life, really.
Had the world of ideas,
Yes,
that you're getting
yes.
different points of view, different places in the world. I find it interesting that you had your books have been translated into different languages, Hindi and Japanese and other Asian languages. How did that happen?
Oh, who knows? One of the things about writing is that if a book might have an appeal beyond our country, the United States. There is a conference in Frankfurt, Germany, where books are sold and things are bartered literary wise. And so it just happened that a couple of my novels and short story collections, all of them, by the way, either young adult or middle grade, were sold to different publishers, Japanese, Italian, French, Spanish, and Korean. And I think there's one book in Hindi, which I've not seen. But so 6 languages, and I have the books, and I can read the Spanish one, but I can't read the other one. So it's still exciting to look at.
Exciting.
Yeah, they're exciting. And so somewhere in Japan, someone's read my books, and the word Fresno has come across, in the vocabulary. And I don't know what they think of Fresno, my hometown, but when Fresno comes up, they're going, gee, I have to visit that place. It sounds exciting. I said, please don't. Actually, Fresno is a great place. Excuse me for 1 second. I'm going to just take my watch it's malfunctioning.
Okay.
Okay. I think we, maybe a few more minutes, and then, we'll call it. But
Fine.
Was there another question, Yolanda, you'd like to ask?
Yes. I think that you also moved into a new genre of documentary and filmmaking, that you have a work in progress. It's a film, a feature full-length film.
a couple of things are occurring, not so much documentary, but adaptations. I have a novel called Buried Onions. You could almost call it a documentary. Buried Onions is a novel set in Fresno, and it's working with a metaphor. This is kind of a really hard novel. Underneath Fresno, there's a layer of onions making everyone weep from life. As if you cut an onion in half, you breathe the fumes of it, it'll make you weep. So it's called Buried Onions. And it is almost a documentary. We filmed it last June in Fresno, and we canned it. We're around what they call the word assembling it, kind of like we're putting it together, and then we'll edit the film. We'll put the music to the film. We'll do all the things that sharpen up some of the slow moments. It's right now it runs 150 minutes in length. In August we'll see where we are, and it's really a challenging work for everyone involved. We had a good crew, some people from Japan, Indonesia, Canada. We had talent from Fresno, talent from Ohio, talent from Colorado, the actors, everyone. And I wish I could pay every one of the actors what they deserved, but this is truly an indie film, and it's going to look so gorgeous. It's going to speak to a lot of people. So we're in a stage right now of trying to shop it around. It's the film industry is could be kind of rough and unkind. I'll call it what it is. It's unkind at times. Otherwise, why would you have this strike right now going on down in Hollywood?
Right.
But it's I did a couple other short films. One called The Bike, and one called The Pool Party. But there's a joke in the film industry. You're either trying to get into film or you're trying to get out of film. It's kind of like, oh my God, this is it's too challenging. And so this is happening. And it's the other things are happening, but I just can't say anything right now in the positive sense. It's happening for me, but it's so early. And filmmaking is getting Buried Onions prepared took a 2-year process. It was 2 years of writing the script, 2 years of arranging talent, of getting cast, getting locations, getting permits to film in Fresno, all these things, insurance, everything is it is really a hefty process. And so I am glad to be part of this, but we'll see what transpires with Buried Onions. We'll have a finished product probably in August, September at the latest.
Well, you'll have audiences at film festivals, certainly. And you just have to take your show on the road again and
right.
Get it out to different film festivals.
Yeah.
And with the breadth and diversity, this is one of the things that's so beautiful about your process is your diversity of writing and the style and the stories and the themes are very wide and diverse. And you're going to continue to meet a very wide audience with more people that are going to be interested in the work because it is diverse. And we're looking from different points of view. We're looking at different cultures and seeing what we can learn from them. So I think this is a very exciting process, and you give me a lot of inspiration because
well, thank you. Thank you, Yolanda.
To keep stretching and to keep looking at different ways of expressing one's creativity. Do you have any recommendations to people about how to expand their creativity or how to jump into it?
That's a really good question. One thing I mentioned early on is that, Yolanda, sometimes I'm praying to myself, Gary, get your act together, do something. So, inspiring others, I think that one of the things is that you have to really look at something that inspires you. I can't offer inspiration except, remember I mentioned a beautiful novella, Foster by Claire Keegan. Yes. And that inspires me. I think that young people, visiting the literature or art or music, I would give it a try and see where it takes you. Because unless you attempt something, then nothing happens. And even it doesn't have to be literature. Attempting a new something in yourself, and that could be spiritual. That could be volunteerism. That could be studying something that's just far from what from your references in life. All of it could be a challenge, and I think that's one of the words I want to use and end with is that even though I've been writing for almost 50 years, I still feel that challenge to do something. And I think no matter what your age is, whether you're very young to whether you're on the opposite end, if you challenge yourself, something good will happen. And I'll leave that thought with our viewers today.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you, Gary Soto, for being with us today, for sharing your process and your inspiration and your ideas with us. It's been very exciting and very eye-opening, and I thank you so much.
It is my pleasure, Yolanda. Okay, you take care, everybody out there in the world.
Thank you.
Adios.
Pick up the books. And to the audience, be sure to tune in next month for another edition of Yolanda Nava. Do you see what I see? Thanks for joining me.